I'm on. Oh, yeah.
700 miles to come do it, son.
Stud in the bucket.
665.9.
You're listening to the Point Click Fish Podcast. We bring you the best in fishing entertainment with interviews, how-tos, stories, food, fishing reports from the captains, teams, and celebrities that are all in the industry. And now, here's your host, Captain Jay Feemster and the Point Click Fish team.
Hey guys, Captain Jay, PointClickFish.com. We're live here with a video podcast to be able to talk and show you at the same time the great features of Sirius XM Marine weather. As you know, we go to a lot of tournaments. We have the Sirius XM Marine weather kiosk where we do live demos, answer questions, and actually show the product in use. But a lot of times we get a lot of questions and we want to connect with our digital audience to be able to bring Dan Dickerson from Sirius XM Marine. Dan, welcome to the show.
Thank you, sir. Good to be here.
Well, I tell you, one of the things is, as you know, we get a lot of questions about Sirius XM Marine weather. So, you know, anything from what does the service do? How do you get the signal? What equipment do you need? What type of packages are offered? I mean, there is a lot of questions, but to be honest with you, there's a lot of information that we can make sure that anglers, fishermen, boaters, sailors, you name it, that they have at their fingertips while they're on the water well outside of cell phone signal range that really gives them a lot of power these days. But more importantly, we wanted to talk to the man, Dan Dickerson at Sirius XM Marine, to tell us and show us a little bit about those great features.
Right. You know, it's funny, and I was one of those people. I've been with Sirius XM Marine for 10 years now. And when I first joined the company, when I first went in for the interview, I didn't know that Sirius XM did anything with weather. I had no clue. And it was quite an eye-opener to see what's available. So a lot of people don't know that we're more than just music. And then when you start thinking about the way you can get it delivered to your boat, you know, we take cell phones for granted nowadays. We use them so much. And it's not uncommon for me to be talking to someone at a show, and I'll mention to them, well, you know, your cell phone's not going to work once you get about 6, 8, 10 miles out, depending on where you're at. And they're like, well, what do you mean? You know, they've just been fishing the coast and hadn't really thought about it. I said, well, you know, you're out of sight of land, you're probably out of sight of cell phone coverage too.
Absolutely. And like you said, a lot of people don't realize that Sirius XM Marine has a weather division. And,
Yep.
you know, and if you do spend any time on the water, you understand how valuable that service is. But if you're new to boating or you're really
Right.
not sure about the service, you know, there's a lot you don't know. And that's something that's important, where we get a lot of those questions to say, wow, you know, what does it do? Tell me more.
Right. And honestly, you know, again, a lot of people don't use it to its fullest potential. I mean, they'll use it for looking at a storm, which is fine, but there's so much more there, and you know, there's some new stuff that we can talk about that we've been added, but just the basic weather services, you know, little things like the VHF, the weather forecast you normally listen to on your VHF radio. You know, we put that on screen as text, so you don't have to listen to that garbled computer voice on the VHF. And you don't. With me, I know, you know, for years using that, I'd turn on that weather report, go down to the boat, I'm getting the boat ready and listening to the weather, right? And they talk about your area and somebody else's area and somebody else's area. And invariably, I would get distracted when they were talking about my area, and I miss it. Then I got to wait 20 minutes for it to come back around again. It's a lot easier just to, you know, fire up your chart plotting screen and tap on it and say, okay, what's the weather here going to be? I want to see what the weather is right there. That's where I'm going. That's what I need to know. And then that's the other thing is, people, when they hear that we do weather, they're like, you know, what do you mean you do weather? And the fact that we're, you know, physically overlaying that data on your charts, on your chart plotter. I mean, that's that, and it's that way it's reliable. You know, if it's rough and windy and rainy out, you don't want to pull out your cell phone and be looking at it anyway, even if you did have coverage. You want a nice dedicated waterproof device that's designed to be in that environment to be able to, you know, see what's coming at you and maybe see how to get out of it.
Well, let's talk about a little bit about, let's say I'm brand new. I've never had, you know, I just bought a boat.
Right.
Just got a, you know, chart plotter. What do I do? You know, how do I get there?
Right. So, a lot of these displays on your boat today, we call them MFDs, multifunction displays. So you've got one screen or a couple of screens, depending on the size of the boat, that is going to show you your charts. It's basically your GPS. It shows you the boat on screen. You also use it as your depth finder. It shows you your sonar imagery. You can bring up your engine gauges on it. So in addition to all of that, you can buy a Sirius XM receiver, and it's going to be made by the same company that made the MFD. So if you have a Raymarine MFD, then you buy a Raymarine Sirius receiver. Or if you have a Garmin MFD, you're going to buy a Garmin Sirius receiver. And basically, it's plug and play. It's a small box with an antenna that plugs into that system. And then once you have that box, an antenna installed, it's got an ID number. It's kind of like a phone number that we communicate with the unit. You call us and you subscribe to the service. And then we basically send out a signal to the unit to wake it up and let it start showing you all this good information on screen. So again, we've had compatibility with most of the major brands since about 2005. So this is not something really new either, although a lot of people haven't heard about it. But yeah, so we work with Raymarine, we work with Garmin, we work with Furuno, with the Navico Group, which is the Lowrance and Simrad and Brooks and Gatehouse names. So all of those companies have Sirius XM weather compatible displays and receivers. So you can have that type of system on your boat to see Sirius XM weather, and of course music. All the weather receivers also can bring in Sirius audio as well. So you can have all your 140 some, 50 some channels of entertainment as well as the weather information. But of course the difference, getting back to the difference is the weather is a graphical image. So once you've got all this equipment on your boat and you call us and you set up a subscription, and there's a couple different levels of service depending on your boating, whether you're just staying in the bays or if you're headed out offshore fishing, a couple of different price points. But basically, once you get this service, it's a graphical image that gets overlaid on your charts on your chart plotter. So a lot of us, we all have these weather apps on our phone now. It's a similar thing. You're going to be able to see a storm coming at you. But in addition to storm information, we have custom marine information as well, like wave height, wave period, wave direction, wind speed and direction. And of course, for the fishermen, we have sea surface temperature information, which is very useful to be able to find what we call a temp break.
Particularly with a lot of the billfish tournaments coming up, a lot of the sport fish boats are using the service for the sea surface temperatures, so they can find those breaks to find the fish, to find the bait. So that's a critical piece in the tournament aspect as well.
Yep, I've got a lot of people come up to the show and tell me that they won't leave the dock without it, and it might be for safety reasons, or it might be because it's going to put them on the fish faster. Either way, it's a useful tool to have in your belt.
Well, so they've gotten the service. They've got the antenna for the multifunction display for that manufacturer. They know what information that they can get. Let's show them a little bit about what it looks like, so that way they can become familiar with kind of what they would see once they get to that service. Right.
So I've got it up on screen here. We can take a look. I've got an image showing off. This was taken off of a Raymarine chart plotter. And first and foremost, you can see the storm information. So we can see what a storm looks like. If we were to say we're right here where the cursor is, we're offshore fishing, and we can watch a storm coming towards us. That's what it's going to look like. You can turn on what we call a loop feature and literally see that thing coming towards you. And if we look at the lower part of the screen here, it's a 20-mile scale. So I've got a long ways to run. I could run around to the south of the storm and stay dry, but I'm going to have to get moving here pretty soon. It looks like it's about a 30-mile run to get away from this. I happen to pull an image of a big storm. And you can see different colors here. That's the intensity. Light green is light rain, dark green is dark rain, and then the orange and the red stuff, you want to stay away from that. That's cats and dogs right there. And then not only are we going to show you the what we call precipitation, but I'll flip over here to another screen. That's lightning information. So we're going to show you where lightning strikes are. And again, these are all features that you can turn off and on depending on what information you want to see. So if I want to see information about clouds, or again, we talked a minute ago about sea surface temperature. But and you can also add more than one layer. So here's a good example of rain and lightning at the same time. And you'll notice over here the lightning strikes are a different color. That indicates the age of the strike. We show you anything that's happened within the last 15 minutes. So in this example, what happens when it first strikes, when we first record it, and this information gets updated about every 2 or 3 minutes. Once the lightning strike gets recorded, it shows up as a bright yellow, and then it turns this darker color, and then if it's older than 15 minutes, it disappears. So these are all strikes that occurred within the last few minutes.
Which
so that's your lightning.
We're trying to stay away from.
Yeah, exactly right. We, especially those boys out there running aluminum boats. I always think of them and go, that's scary.
The good part is, it's in relation to where the boat is located. So, in a lot of cases, you can either run around or between, or
exactly
through
right.
those
At least
areas to stay safe.
Yeah, even if you're too slow to get out of it completely, at least you can see, and this is a good image to look at. You can see that right in the middle here is not so bad. That's where I need to be going if I'm trying to run back in, or if you're just going to sit still and watch which way it's going. That's the other thing, is you can see, and you can also see if it's getting worse or if it's blowing itself out. A lot of times we'll see that, you'll see heavy rain, and then you look at it, and the different brands of electronics show you this loop of what it's been doing at different time periods. With Ray Marine, for example, they show you the last 2 hours of what it's been doing. So you can see if an hour ago, if it was heavier than it is now or lighter than it is now. And if it's lighter, then you can say, okay, I can see where it's dissipating, and I might be able to I might be okay, or I need to, duck and run, depending on the case.
You'll see if there's hope or not, right?
Exactly right.
You might want to put on more rain gear.
And I've had customers call and tell me that they were out fishing, and their family called from home, and they said it's storming, it's crazy. Are you out there? Are you okay? And they're sitting out there, and it's of course it's gorgeous out where they are, and you can turn on the radar and you can say, oh yeah, it's all over land, and it's staying on land. So I just need to stay out here and fish longer.
I need to fish longer.
That's right. Let it go ahead and blow itself out. So that's radar and lightning, and that's probably the biggest reason people get the weather subscription is for that storm information. But we can let's take a look at some other information, and we'll flip over. We've been looking at Ray Marine, so let's go look at a different brand, just so you can get an idea of how screens can look different. Let me just flip. Here's a good example right here of another piece of information that we provide. This is weather and buoy information. So what you're looking at on screen are buoys or weather stations along the shoreline or even out in the water. Here's an example of a buoy out here that all have sensors on board, and they're sending that information back to the National Weather Service. Well, we're picking up that feed as well, and we're displaying it on screen for you. So what I have turned on right here is the wind information. So all of these locations are telling me what the wind speed and direction is. This one is telling me it's 14 knots out of the southwest. Over here I got 5 knots out of the south-southwest. So we're seeing indications at all of those different buoys. And basically what you can do is you can click on any of these on screen, and then this is what it's going to do when you actually click on the icon. It's going to bring up even more detailed information, whether it be a weather station like you see here, an airport that's giving you all different kinds of information, or a buoy that's right out in the middle there. And again, the key takeaway here is this is not a forecast. This is live data coming right off of that buoy. So it's not something that somebody thought it was doing. This is what it is actually doing right there. You know, a lot of the guys that are running offshore, they'll fire this up in the morning, and you know, typically there's a buoy, say, you know, 10 miles out or something like that. They'll go look at that weather buoy out there and see what the data is coming up off of that buoy.
We might need to stay at the dock today.
That's right.
We'll postpone this one, guys. We'll be back tomorrow.
Yeah. Exactly. When you start seeing those sea conditions, and you know, speaking of sea conditions, that's something else that we can go and take a look at. Let me see if I can pull up an interesting shot of that for you. So this is a good one right here. I've turned on 3 pieces of information: wave height, wave direction, wave period. So all on one screen at a glance, you're getting that information. Now the color that you see on screen actually represents your wave height. But you can click anywhere on screen like I did here, and it's telling me, okay, these are 5-footers. And there is a color scale over here. We can see basically dark blue means 1 foot or less, and it goes dark blue to green, yellow, and you know, red. You don't want to be there. So the color represents your wave height. We can see this was the mouth of Chesapeake Bay, and up in the Chesapeake, the waves are not as big as they are out in the ocean. Mm-hmm. And then you can see the red arrows are the wave direction. And then lastly, the lines that you see are the wave period, and the number along the line is the time period. So these waves out here in the ocean are 9.6 seconds apart. So they're nice slow rollers. And you can see as you get right here closer to the mouth of the bay, the waves are getting closer together. They're 7 seconds apart. So I've got some guys that are fishing like on the New Jersey coast or down in Florida. You know, they may have a choice of 2 different inlets that they can go in and out of. Where this becomes critical is if you've been out fishing all day and it's time to turn around and go home, you pull up your normal inlet that you're going to run into, and it looks like a washing machine because you've got, you know, wind coming from one direction and wave coming from another. And that's something else that I can do is I can overlay both those pieces of information on the screen at the same time. So we can see, you know, if it's choppy out there, if wind's coming from one direction and wave from another, you might not want to try and run that inlet. So if you've got a plan B, you might have another inlet to go in and out of where it's not as bad. We get that in the Carolinas too. People running, you know, have the choice of a couple of different inlets. So again, it goes back to being a safety factor.
I was going to say, Dan, one of the things that I always tell people when we're doing the demos is, you know, the more you understand what you're looking at and you understand the capabilities of the service, the more you're going to get out of it. You know, understanding what you're looking at, and you know, like, you know, you hit on a couple great points that said, you know, you've selected what you wanted to show. So right. They can turn on and off the things that really matter to them. You know, maybe they want all of it, or maybe they want just these certain things, but it allows them to customize what they want to see or what they need to see. But that's critical because you get to pick, you know, It's there, and whether you want it on screen or not, you get to select yes or no, basically.
Right. Yeah, and you know, it like depends on the size of your boat. You know, you might not care if the waves are 10 foot, but you don't want to be out in 10 knot winds. You know, it could be a number of reasons. And the other thing is, if you're fishing, certainly our temperature information is wonderful to have, and typically if there's a temp break, and I'll pull that up in a minute. If we're running along a temp break, but if the wind's against us, we might not want to, you know, run that way. If you get beat to death, and you think, okay, well, we need to rethink this, and we might even, you know, it might be time to drift fish, or it might be something to go somewhere else, or, you know, find a different break to get on where the wind's a different direction. You know, here on screen, I've brought up the wind information, and again, this symbol, we call it a wind barb. This is another one we get a lot of questions about. How do I tell which direction the wind is coming from? Mm-hmm. And it is confusing. So I put these lovely little guys over here on the side to kind of demonstrate. But you know, in this image, the center of the winds are 10 knots out of the east. You got this little guy that looks kind of like a sideways L.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the long part of that is giving us the direction. You think of the dot as the fixed point, and you're facing into the wind or pointing into the wind. So the wind is 10 knots out of the east. And I got a little legend up on the side on this one, so you can kind of see what these different tick marks mean. Down here at the bottom of the screen, you see that little half tick mark. That means that the winds are 5 knots. So again, the direction is the winds are out of the southeast down here on the bottom at 5 knots. And then up at the top, we've got strong winds, 15. You got looks like the letter F kind of laying off on its side there. The long tick mark at the end means 10 knots, and the short one means 5, so we got 15. If there were 2 longs and a short, then it would be 25. So that's your wind information and how that works. And the other thing about the wind and the wave is these are the current forecast conditions. And again, this information is a forecast. This is what we thought it was going to be doing right now. Mm-hmm. And not only can you see the current information, but we also, depending on which package you've subscribed to, we go out as far as 48 hours on showing you what the wind's going to be doing. So again, if you're running out in the morning, you're having a good morning fishing, it's 10 a.m. and you're thinking you're probably going to run in around 2 or 3, you can go look ahead and see, do I need to end my day early, or can I stay out here a little longer?
You might need to come in at 1.
Exactly right. It might be time to go back. Might be Miller time, might be early today.
That is true. That is true.
It might not be 5 o'clock somewhere. We might need to make it 2 o'clock somewhere.
It's going to be 1 o'clock today, right?
That's right.
That's better than getting stuck out there in something you don't want to be. That's for sure.
Exactly. Or somebody making the crossing from Florida to the Bahamas. Again, they're looking for their weather window. That's like you said, you get up in the morning, you look up, not today, and well, let's go look at tomorrow. It's that easy. You flip ahead on your chart plotter and say, okay, today the winds are blowing, 25, and tomorrow they're going to be down to 5. Let's plan on heading across tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
That's where the wind information comes in handy. And then barometric pressure again, and one of the phrases we have started using is you kind of get to be your own meteorologist when you're out there, and again, that's talking, you got to use this information and kind of, understand it. And the best thing I can tell people to do is to look at it, watch it, play around with it, push the buttons, figure out what it looks like, and then, go back and look at it an hour later and look at what's out on the horizon and look at on screen. The experience is the best teacher in this case, and to see, to learn how to utilize these features. But here we're looking at barometric pressure on screen, and of course some of the fishermen will tell you that barometric pressure affects bite. So what we do is we give you these red lines. In this case, are isobars. So we're looking at 1,011 millibars over here and 1,006 millibars over here. And so this is the lower pressure, and there's an L that's drives that point home. There's low pressure right here, so we can see where the low is and where the high is, and and of course this is zoomed way out. But you get an idea of what it is, and also again forecasting. You can see what it's going to be doing over the next 48 hours, so we can see how it's changing. So it's not only about storm and weather conditions changing, but bite activity changing. We're all learning to look at the lunar tables as well as now. This is just another one of those. Again, it's another tool you put in your tool belt.
Yeah, and the good part is it's there at your fingertips, even when you're offshore, and you can still look at this information if you need to, or you can look at it at the dock before you leave and kind of know what you're getting into. Either way, whether you're planning to catch fish or stay safe or decide whether to take clients out, on a charter that day. It's from the beginner to the pros. It's a useful tool for everybody.
Right. So what we have on here on screen now is an example of putting all the layers and all the information together. So we've got the red arrows are showing my wave information, the wave direction. The color is representing wave height. The wind barbs are there telling me, and you can see right here the winds and waves are going the same direction, so that's not so bad. Over here, a little bit different. It's turned yellow on us, so we're probably looking at 11 footers out there. Probably don't want to be there. And wind and wave are not in line with each other, so it's going to be even a little bit more choppy. Now, we've alluded to sea surface temperature a bunch of times. Let's go take a look at some sea surface temps and see what how we can show you how to fish a little smarter.
This is where a lot of these tournament anglers perk up and start looking.
And let's see, I'm going to jump out to a different brand of electronics so we can show. So basically, with most of the brands right now, you have a way to turn on your sea surface temperature feature, which is what we've done here. Now we're looking at a SIMRAD screen. So the color of the water represents the water temperature. And if you look over on the side on the left, there's a scale giving us what the colors mean. So we're at about, there's a yellow area at about 75 degrees. So we can see, and this was taken just a few weeks ago. This is basically the Gulf Stream is what we're seeing here, the Gulf Stream off the Carolinas. So this is familiar territory for you.
Very much so.
And then we have an adjust feature. So we go over to this adjust feature for SST. And you can see we have a warm and a cool setting that we can change. And right now it's on 99 and 36. So if I go on and see, you can see how the screen just changed. I dialed the upper temperature from 99 down to 78 degrees. And then I'm going to do a little bit more. We're going to push the cool temperature up. So now you can see that our range over here has changed. We're only, much smaller scale, 48 to 78, and we can really see a nice color change here, and that's what we call a temp break. Where we want to be is in that orange range. And I'll see if we can bring this up just a little bit. There we go. So now you can see right where that nice temp break is. And you can do this right on your screen, right on the boat, and see where you want to be. You can mark it as a waypoint and head straight for it. So that's again, talking with fishermen that have used this service, they swear by it. That's one of the first things. They're on the boat getting ready to head out. They don't even leave until they get a look at where these temp breaks are. Yeah, and basically we're making it easier. When you leave the inlet, it's a big ocean out there. You can head north, you can head south, and we've all got our favorite spots that we go to. And what we're doing is telling you of your favorite spots, the best one to go to at a certain time, which one it's going to be.
Yeah, it's helping taking some of that guesswork out of it by using the technology piece of it that helps eliminate some of that time that it would take normally to go and hopefully find that. At least you're able to use what you know with what you've got technology wise and combine those two and go to the right location to hopefully get what you need and get back to the scales in a lot of cases, or fill the cooler up with fish, depending on what you're doing.
Right. So that's
an excellent tool for fishermen for sure.
Yeah. And a lot of people, again, the ability to adjust that, a lot of people didn't realize that capability exists on these devices. So, and it hasn't been on all the devices all along, and it's not on all of them today. So you do need to check your owner's manual. That's another thing we do get asked a lot about. Where do I find out how to use this? And again, because the box was built by the manufacturer, they're the ones that have the manuals that show you how to use their specific devices. So with Ray Marine, for example, it's in the Lighthouse manual. They talk about their Lighthouse software. You'll find a weather section in there. For Garmin, you'll have a weather section. And the other nice thing about a lot of these newer MFDs is the owner's manuals exist in the MFD, so you can actually call it up even if you're out on the boat and you forgot how to do something. If you got a little time on your hands there, you can pull the manual up right on the screen and figure it out right there while you need it.
Yeah, and another thing that you and the team at Sirius XM Marine do is you do a lot of manufacturer-specific webinars too that kind of go into detail and show that specific manufacturer, kind of the highlights on each of those. So that's something too. Make sure that you're checking out the Sirius XM Marine webpage, because a lot of those, or social media channels. And then we put a lot of information out. Hey, it's coming. Make sure if you're, Ray Marine, Simrad, Garmin, whichever manufacturer you're using, right, go look at that webinar. Because a lot of times if they've just changed something, they've updated something, they can cut out some of the guesswork by attending some of those webinars as well.
Yeah, and on some of these, it's a pretty steep learning curve. We've all gotten a new boat that had a different brand of electronics. You got to learn everything all over again. And of course, for us, we live and breathe just the weather part of it. So we do pride ourselves in being able to explain how to use each of the features on each of the different brands. And we've got a support email address, marine.support@siriusxm.com. For anybody that has any questions, and it's even if we can't answer it, we probably know who to talk to. At Ray Marine or at Garmin, or we're pretty good at getting you an answer if we don't have it ourselves. So we do have a lot of information, and that's getting better all the time. It's this new day and age. We're reinventing ourselves as well, and putting new information out there all the time.
Technology is always changing.
Yeah, that it is. Yeah, especially in the electronics world.
Were there any other key features or tips or tricks that you want to share with us that you think that would be of interest to the users?
So a couple of basic things that we always do like to cover. Yeah, number one is I mentioned early on how we have this ID number that's kind of like a phone number. By which we contact the unit. So if your unit's not working, and the reason they might not work is, say they've gone without power for 2 months. Sometimes if they go without power for too long, they lose their subscription status. It's meant to be stored in the device, and if it's left turned off for too long, it loses it. So we have what we call a refresh signal, and there's an easy way. You can go online to SiriusXM.com/marine, or even the main Sirius page. There's a way to do what we call a refresh signal, and basically we'll just ping it and wake it up. So you need to know where that number is, and it's always going to be, you can bring it up on the display. You don't have to go find the box of the owner's manual or your bill or anything like that. It'll be on the display. For most people, I tell them the easiest place to find it is it's always channel 0. Even if you're not subscribed to music, these weather receivers all have the music capability, and we broadcast channel 1 is our free open-to-air channel, always there. And even if you don't have it hooked up to speakers, you can still get to channel 1, you can still get to channel 0, and channel 0 will take you to your ID number. So that's if you call us, if you have that ID number, we're going to be able to locate your account. We're going to be able to send you a ping, or if you're going online, you can do it yourself very easily with that number. It's just a good thing to have. Of course, it might not be a bad idea to take a snapshot of that screen and store it in your phone too. We're all using our phones for our libraries these days.
We are, and I imagine there's a couple users that probably wish you would have given them that advice for channel 0 while they were looking for their boxes.
Yeah. Yeah. And the other thing is, I always say it's better to get it off the screen, because if you can find it on screen, that means it's hooked up properly and it's communicating, and part one of the equation's already been solved.
If it's not there, it's probably not hooked up.
Exactly right. Exactly right. Something's wrong.
So the first clue why it's not working.
Yeah. And of course, the other thing is signal strength. And I should probably go find a screen to show you signal strength. Let me see here what I can round up for you. So here's an example of the home screen on a Garmin. Right in the upper right-hand corner, are two signal strength icons, a cloud with a lightning bolt, and one says SXM. Well, one's the weather signal strength, and the other one is the audio signal strength. So again, all of your devices somewhere on screen are going to have signal strength, and if it's not working, well, that's the first thing I always say, hey, do you have signal? It's like your cell phone. When the phone drops out, what do? I don't have any bars. Well, that's why I can't. Why it's not going to work. Same thing. Keep an eye on that signal strength. So the next thing we like to talk about is our suspend capability. We got a lot of people boating up north. The boat tends to get put up on the hard for the winter. We don't expect you to pay us when you're not using the boat. You can call us and ask to suspend your service. And basically we'll say, okay, we'll stop your billing today. And if you've paid us for 6 months in advance, we just take whatever you paid us for. It sets an escrow on your account, and then we can turn it back on in the spring, and there's no fee to do that. And you can even be on monthly billing and have 2 weeks left in your subscription before the end of the month. We can set those 2 weeks aside, turn your service off, and in the spring, those two weeks will be there waiting for you. So the suspend feature is a nice feature to have, and even during this, these crazy times, we've extended or eased up on our suspend policy. Typically, we say you can only suspend once or twice a year, but right now we realize these are hard times, and if you need to suspend a little longer, not a problem. We typically say you can only suspend for up to 6 months. And again, we realize that this spring, a lot of people are not getting their boats launched as soon as they had hoped. So if they need to, stay in suspend mode another month or two, hey, that's fine. You just let us know. We're happy to do that for you. So that's the suspend. And of course, I mentioned, the music. All these receivers have the capability to bring in the music signal. And you don't even need to have a stereo head, so to speak. The music comes into the Sirius XM receiver, and it just goes into an auxiliary port on a stereo, or just you can put it right into an amp and then go out to speakers, and all of your radio controls are right on your multifunction display, right on the chart plotter. You can adjust the volume from there, change channels from there. So it's all right there for you. No need to, some of these boats get a little limited on space. A smaller boat, if you don't have room to put in a whole nother stereo, then you could just go with the unit itself.
Yeah, that's a really good feature for people that may not be aware that you could do that. Like you said, sometimes space is an issue, particularly on a lot of smaller boats. So that's something that some people probably didn't really think of.
So, what else have we got in our stockpile that we should mention?
Well, I tell you, a lot of these features that you discussed, I imagine a lot of people probably weren't aware that they existed. Particularly a lot of the abilities to customize what they're looking at. Even, one of the things we get is a lot of people are unaware of the suspend piece as well. They just didn't know that was even an option. And some people, they use their boat all year, which that's not, that's great. But some people only use them during certain months. So that's an excellent feature. We talked about the hardware. We talked about the subscription, the service, but the troubleshooting tips are fantastic too, because that saves people the heartache of, oh, I didn't realize that the antenna wasn't plugged in or I wasn't getting signal. And that helps eliminate calls to you, but the user gives them the capability to troubleshoot themselves to know that that something is not right before they call. So they know it's broke. It's definitely, it's broke.
Right.
Or it could be, the refresh piece. A lot of people that have the radio service are familiar with the refresh piece as well. So that same thing applies here to the weather. I was trying to think any other features that we use as well. The SST is critical in the fishing. That's something that we use a lot. But the biggest thing when I take my family out is the safety, the safety piece, to know that I'm taking my wife and kids out and that the weather is going to be relatively good to ensure that they have a good time. I may enjoy it a little bumpier than they may like, right? So I always like to make sure that it's safe for them when we go out, particularly a little further offshore. We're always checking the weather when we get on the boat to make sure that it's going to be ideal if we're heading offshore. So that's something from the family aspect, is to ensure that everybody is it's within their limitations.
Right.
But I was trying to think, I think that, for the good intro piece, Dan, that is a great overview of the service itself and the hardware, and really just kind of gives people, that basic information. And even some of it really wasn't even the basic piece, because the troubleshooting tips, I don't care if you're a pro or a novice, that's critical to be able to troubleshoot, what's going on with the equipment or the service.
Yeah, and certainly makes it easy. And there is one other. We'll use Garmin again as an example. Let me see if I can get you to the right screen.
And that's something I hear a lot too, is when people are trying to find that weather outlook, that's usually broadcast on VHF, being able to get that, pull it up and read it, saves a lot of time trying to find it, trying to listen to it, trying to, in some cases, understand it, because that automated voice sometimes isn't exactly the easiest to understand.
Yeah, for sure. So here's an example of the weather subscription page that's available on some units, where we actually list the individual data elements and give you a timestamp of when the last update came in, so we can see that the county warnings are 5 minutes old, or the radar is just came in, it's showing a timestamp of 0, kind of a thing. So again, from a troubleshooting aspect, to see how if you look at the screen and go, wait a minute, that looks the same as it did 10 minutes ago, there's a way to go check and see if the information's been updating as it should.
Yeah, and that shows a great outline too, as well as everyone that all the different elements that are going into that service as well.
Right.
And obviously, the one we end up using a lot whenever we get a hurricane heading our way. Unfortunately, we tend to get quite a few of those. We'll actually go to the boat and look at that as well. Unfortunately, we have to deal with those. So it actually helps. We actually go to the boat and look at it in real time. That helps us to kind of see what's happening.
That's another brings up another element is when there is a warning area. NOAA will highlight an area on screen like you can see here that's shown in red. And then you can click on that area, and it will bring up the information about that area that's being shown. So that's the marine warning system. And again, listening to VHF, you hear them say something about tune to channel so and so and listen to this or whatever. A little easier just to flip on the screen and go, okay, I need to go look at what's going on right there, or that's not in my area. I don't need to be worried about it because I'm in Cape May. I'm not in Long Island, kind of a thing, depending on where you're at. Yeah.
And what's interesting with the weather warnings, unfortunately as well, sometimes when a fishing tournament is scheduled, sometimes not desirable weather will come in just because there's a fishing tournament. They
Right.
meant to be true, but by having the kiosk there, we're actually able to use that at the captain's party to kind of get that total picture outlook. And we've actually had a lot of people that were not aware of certain features of the service that actually got it because we were able to kind of see what was being, going to happen that week or that weekend for a tournament. And it really provides a lot of good information. And sometimes tournaments have to be postponed or canceled because of those events. But we end up using that quite a bit, to kind of see what the outlook is going to be. Because when we do billfish tournaments, they have to choose days to fish throughout the 4 to 5 day fishing tournament.
Right.
So they're needing to make a decision based on whatever they have that shows, hey, these are the days that are going to be good. So that helps, particularly in a lot of the tournament situations, them to make a better decision that gets them out on the water.
Right. And I think it's so much easier than trying to listen to that on the radio. When they're talking about, point such and such to the entrance to so-and-so channel and whatever, especially if you're fishing a tournament and you've come in from out of town and you're not familiar with the local geography, to know what they're talking about on the radio, where you can at least look on the map and say, okay, this doesn't apply to me, or it does apply to me, and I need to pay attention to it.
That is true. I traveled and fished quite a bit, and you're right. A lot of times you're like, well, let me check and make sure. Is that around here? So
Right.
Let's cut out some of that guessing game. That's for sure.
They cover such a broad area on the radio.
They do. So yeah, weather warnings was another one. I'm glad that you brought that up. That's another great feature of the service as well. But also don't forget about the support number. The listeners that are watching or listening to the podcast, make sure that if you do have a problem, that you reach out to the Sirius XM Marine team. There's the YouTube channel, there's the Facebook, Instagram. There's a lot of great information out there for the service.
Yeah, we're all over the place nowadays. As you can see here, we've got a new marine library where we're storing videos and such, and then we've out on YouTube there's a lot of information available, as well as our home SiriusXM.com/marine. And of course, we welcome you to please follow us on all the media, on all the social media. We like to see our social media audience growing, and we try and put little tidbits out there as well. Over the year, we started doing little things like, did you know about our wave height information, or did you know about our marine zone information?
But like I said, I'm a firm believer, the more that they know, the more they understand what they're looking at, the better, and the more that they're going to walk away with the service, the more they're going to get out of it. So anytime that they can go watch the library or the YouTube channel or the webinars, that's critical, because if you don't understand what you're looking at, it's not going to help you as much. So take the time, research it, ask questions. If you don't understand something, email Dan and the team there at Sirius XM Marine. They'll be glad to answer them for you, but that, if you understand it, so therefore you can take advantage of it.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, me, I'm jumping on a bunch of different boats. If I'm jumping on a boat that has a Ray Marine and I haven't run a Ray Marine in a while, I'll go, watch the video. It's worth that 5 minutes just to it jogs the memory on where the button pushes are. Or if you haven't fished in 2 months, take 10 minutes and watch a video. It can help quite a bit. Saves a lot of frustration out there on the water trying to remember when there's so much going on.
Or you can impress your friends and say, Dan Dickerson taught me how to do this. Well, Dan, I appreciate you taking the time to sit down with us and go over this information. We look forward to doing more of these seminars, to kind of the podcast piece for us to integrate the video was critical, because there's a lot of information like this that when you see it, it makes a lot more sense than when you hear it. So we're going to do a lot more video podcasts for our listeners and let them kind of see what we're talking about and bring on the great team at Sirius XM Marine. We enjoy working with you guys. We enjoy using the product. It helps keep us safe. And we enjoy educating people ourselves about the service when we're on the road.
Well, we look forward to working with you, and we really like what you do, showing that weather information the night before, or and keeping people abreast of the current conditions out there. You're doing a really great job.
We look forward to having you on again. And like I said, look forward to seeing you again. Stay safe. And hopefully next time we'll be able to go out on the water and go fishing ourselves and use the service while we're out there.
There you go. Sounds good. We'll have real water in the background instead of just a photograph.
Absolutely. Any excuse to go fishing. That's
you know it.
That's what, the bottom line. Any excuse to go fishing.
That's it. We're there.
All right, Dan. Well, thank you very much. We look forward to getting you back on again here soon.
Okay. Take care, guys.
All right, thank you.